All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Today with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com and The Ultimate Man. And today, I have a huge intention for you guys here. I got a huge guy. He's the founder of Masculine Intent. This guy, when I saw his name, I'm like, oh my God, Christian Bale? I really thought it was
I'm not Batman.
He's not Batman. Maybe we'll get him to do the Batman voice as well, guys, just to put it out there. But his name's Chris. Oh shit! It's gonna be good fun, guys. He's a man who's all about masculine intent. He's all about trying to redefine what the 21st century masculine man should be. He really helps guys get in touch with just unlocking themselves sexually, going charismatically, lovingly, and most of all in an authentic way and with authentic power. And so I'm excited to have this chat here with Chris because it's been a while since we're trying to get him on the show. So I'm excited to have him on. So guys, please welcome Chris Bale to the show. Chris, good to have you on, brother.
Thank you, man. Do I get like a sound clap in the background with like stadium claps or anything like that?
No, you just get the Batman voice.
Man thing ever. So thank you for that. It's validated me a little bit.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. You cut off there for a little bit, but that's all right, man. So Chris, man, for the people who haven't heard about you and your work before, could you tell us a bit more about yourself, man?
Okay. So my name is Chris and I've been working with men on a one-on-one basis for about, it's coming up on almost 6 years at this point. In terms of defining what I do, the way I see it and my purpose is delivering freedom to masculinity, delivering freedom to men, because in our society at the moment, we are strangled as men. We're confused, we're afraid, we don't know what directions to go, we're not decisive, we have no grounding, and it's almost disgusting to see that men are kind of blowing in the wind like wafers and always looking to other people for advice. Now, this is partly the reason I have a job and, you do what you do, because there are men asking questions. But at the core of what I do, it's letting men know that you don't need to ask anybody for questions and you're not broken. You just have to start having some self-reliance and facing your own shit, facing your own fears and stepping into that with your edge. That will kind of sort out everything else in your life as well. You won't have any more questions. So in a nutshell, it's freedom. Getting guys to have internal freedom, external freedom that leads to sexual freedom, spiritual freedom, everything.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. And I love how you hammered on the point here. And I want to bring it up here because it's so important is that, guys in today's world, as being you, have experienced, right? And have gone through ourselves, I'm guessing, that, there's just so much doubt, right? We make a decision, but then we doubt ourselves, or we don't even want to make a decision for fear of making the wrong decision or making a mistake in our lives, right? And so tell me about your experience, man. And I'm sure you've gone through something like this too. We'd love to know, how did you realize that you were in this situation, and what did you do to get out of it, man?
What did I do to get out of it? That was a long process. What I will say to guys, and I'm always honest with the men who come to me, is that it's never a quick fix. There's never like this overnight epiphany that you have, but it's rather a lot of different epiphanies kind of stacking on top of each other to form a specific way of being. So for me, in terms of my history and what I was like, I'm very happy of the fact that 90% of guys who come to me, I can always say, I was in a far worse situation than you were. I kind of started into this when I was about 16, 17. I was incredibly anxious as a teenager. I had no idea who I was, which resulted in me trying to be lots of different people to every single person that I met. I was trying to please everyone I met, which is one of the core problems I see with guys. We're people pleasers. We need external validation to feel like we're accepted.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I was so socially anxious that even the thought of leaving my house to go to the shop to get water or milk was terrifying. I would have to like build myself up to leave the house to go and do those things. So getting there for me was a very slow process, but it begun with a breakdown. It begun with, okay, I'm at this point and I'm sick every week. My immune system was fucked just because I was so stressed that my body was kind of rebelling against itself. I used to have swollen glands every week. I was just miserable. It was horrible. And it got so bad that I was in the position that, okay, well, one option is that I don't continue doing this and I end it, which I know is a very dark way to bring up, but I gotta be honest. And the second option was to, okay, well, I can skip that first option for a while and see if I can do something a bit more constructive. And that constructive decision came from anger and frustration and the fact that I just had a fucking, like, it was enough, just enough. So my rebellion began in a very negative light, so to speak. I was forcing myself to be the things I was afraid of, because I was so consumed with being nice to people and being digestible to people that, okay, I gotta go completely the opposite and be what I would deem an asshole, or deem what I would be a dickhead, or someone who's just abrasive. Now, as I said, it wasn't healthy and it wasn't the most alluring way to move, but it had huge consequences for me.
Yeah. Let me jump in here, Chris. I'm interested here. Like you say, you had to go in and just be that douchebag, that idiot, that dickhead, whatever it is, right? Why was it that you had to go to that way, right? You moved from, like we were talking off air about the people pleasing, being like what I call a chameleon, who has to transform into everything possible so that that person says they like me, or that they enjoy me and they love me, or whatever. And what made you shift then to go and say, I'm going to stop being the chameleon, I'm going to stop being the people pleaser, and I'm just going to go be that dickhead, that douchebag? Like, why that person?
I guess because I was so tired and so stressed, because it's so much work, and anyone who can relate to me on this will understand that when you're so afraid of people not liking you, that you have to force yourself to be so aware of them so you can change yourself based on what you feel they need from you. It's so tiring, it's so stressful, and it just beats you down again and again and again, to the point that you just don't want to have social interaction. You just don't want to be around people because it's so difficult. And you ask yourself, why can't I just be like that person who always looks relaxed? And why can't I be like that person who loves being around people? So I used to lie. I used to pretend that I was the life of the party. So for me, my mind just giving up.
Sorry, I missed that last part, man.
Yeah, so the enough point came from my body and my mind just giving up.
Yeah,
saying that we can't keep doing this because this is not leading anywhere that's going to be good for you.
And then that triggered you into just being more of the, like, what would it? I guess when we say douchebag or dickhead, it's more the self-centered type of guy, right?
Well, for me, this is the thing. This is the funny thing, because for me, my idea of what it was to be self-centered was the actions I started to take on. But it wasn't even being self-centered because I was so far away from ever being a douchebag or a dickhead in my life. So, like, I can break this down. What it was for me and what I agreed upon with myself was, I'm going to feel however I feel in public. So I said, I'm no longer being happy and smiling and strapping on a smiling face. If I feel sad, I'm going to be sad around the people that I'm with. If I'm angry, I'm going to be angry with the people that I'm with. Whatever I'm feeling, I'm just going to own it, and I'm going to be it in the places that scare me the most. And I started to do that, and it was a process. It was a really freeing process. And I started to fall back into my... It started to generate a lot of self-love towards myself when I realized that I can be who I am and who I'm feeling at any moment in time. And suddenly girls are talking to me because at the same time when I was having this breakdown, I mean, I was studying pickup for like a year or 2 or 3 years before that, just dabbling with it. And again, I was so confused. I didn't know what I wanted. And it was just pulling me further away from who the fuck I was. And so it all kind of came at the same point where I gave up women also. It's like, no, women suck. I'm sick of talking to them. They don't like me. And so I'm just done. I'm done with women. So I made that decision and I just cut myself off from everything, but put myself in society as this guy who I assumed would be abrasive to other people. But it wasn't abrasive at all. It was just a guy being who he was being, and people being drawn to that because that authenticity is magnetizing.
You know what? I want to jump in because it's so interesting what you're talking about here. Is like, so you went from being the people pleaser to being, in your words, the abrasive guy, which is just like a normal guy who's just expressing himself. And so, when you're, like you're saying, when you're sad, you just be sad. When you're upset, you just be upset. And if you're angry or happy or whatever, you do that. Yeah. So then, was there a time, because you were so used to being a people pleaser, that you're like, oh, hang on a second, if I'm sad all the time, I just find it easier to connect with people. So what if I just be sad all the time? Did you ever encounter something like that, man?
Okay, so you're asking, did I find like a pattern? And if I'm sad, I can connect with people.
You change your color, change your skin so that you can be that. So you can get, and then this vicious loop starts again, right? Of you just people pleasing again.
Shit, I never thought of that. I wish I had, no, but really I wish I had. No, that never happened, luckily. For me, at that point, I was so kind of feeling free in myself that I was allowing my emotions to move like a roller coaster. And what was happening was all the combined shit that I had been going through in the past few years, that was all being purged because I was allowing it to happen. And what was happening as I was going through this process, maybe it took, a few months, a year, to really be able to be who I wanted to be in these situations, because it was always a bit difficult at the beginning, especially. And it always is to some degree. You still have to make that choice. But what happened is, as my feelings and my fears all started to purge themselves, that's when I started to get this very grounding calm in myself. And that's when I could see huge things happening around me. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Because that question popped into my head, because it's like, how do I describe it? It's like, if that happened to me, I could imagine like people doing that, right? And it's just because we're humans, we just want that human connection. And if we don't get it, and because we're so afraid to be who we are, then even if we just be a little bit less of who we are just to get connected, and some people would do that. And I want to highlight this, and I want to honor you, Chris, man, because it's a big deal here. What you did is that, you consistently, from the sounds of it, applied the let it be. Let me just be all of it, be that whole feeling, and let it out. Because and that's the only way forward, right? If we pretend that we're going to let 50% of it out, it's not going to happen, is it?
That's the thing, and I always say this to clients who come to me: if you want to half-ass it, go to somebody else, because the only real way, in my experience, for actual growth, actual change, and getting to a place you want to get to is doing this fully. There is no tiptoeing around this, because even the principle of tiptoeing is what is so prevalent in society with what I call man boys. You've never really graduated to stepping into your own edge and your own masculinity. So everything is half done. It's like, no, sack up, cop the fuck on, and make a decision and follow through with the decision. And if you don't waste my time, because I'm only here to help guys who want to be helped. I'm only here to inspire the same in guys who want to step into it fully. So if guys are thinking of, I'll just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you'll only get a little bit of this and a little bit of that in return for what you're putting into it. So it's a great point you brought up, because usually I don't speak about that. So
that's all we do here, and we pull out the absolute secrets, right, from everyone that comes on the show. And that's why I picked up in your story. It's like, man, that's beautiful. And then so talk me through this, right? So then after you went ahead and you started becoming more of who you are, letting that self out and not holding it back anymore, and you started noticing people start coming towards you. Talk us through that, man. I mean, like, that shocked you at the first point?
It was surprising because I just wasn't aware of it. I didn't see it happening at the beginning because, again, I was just so on myself. I remember one story in particular, and this was like the first time that I was like, whoa, what the fuck has just happened? I was in a bar and I was with friends at the time, and the friends were leaving, and I'm like, no, I'm staying. I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to stay here and be miserable, just sulking myself, but really enjoying the fact that I was sulking in myself, because I never allowed myself to do that. And I was sitting in the corner by like this little booth, and I was drinking, and I noticed this girl kept looking over at me, and I'd look over, and she was beautiful. I looked over, and I was like, oh, whatever. I was done with girls at that point. It's like, I don't want to talk to her. And eventually she came over to me and said, excuse me, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. Why? What do you think is wrong with me? Like, well, you don't look very happy. It's like, I know, I'm relaxing. Maybe I'm not very happy. Okay, why are you not happy? You're out drinking. You should be having fun. It's like, what dictates that I should be having fun here? That's just your belief. And like, I was very abrasive, but at the same, I was just real with her. And we ended up, she sat down, and we ended up falling into this incredibly just real conversation that was enjoyable and that I had never experienced having with another person, let alone an attractive woman. And near the end of the conversation, we were getting closer and closer. And I could see, you know, just via eyes and just body language that something was happening. And I wasn't really trying to make anything happen. I was just being real.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, she kind of cut me off. Can I take you home?
Oh,
like, what?
And the real answer...
That had never happened to me in my...
And you said yes?
I mean, fair. Of course I said yes. Not before I said why, because I was such an idiot. I was like, why? She's like, because I want to sleep with you. I was like, fine. And I was like, just in my own, like, in my own self-detrimental way, I was like, well, you know, you might not even enjoy it. Just being this negative. She's like, I don't care. I'm already almost there. So just come with me. And I was like, fine. So that was a big moment for me. I was like, what the fuck? She was this beautiful Croatian girl who I would never, ever have dreamt before would have been attracted to me. And suddenly she wasn't attracted to anything other than my edge. The reality of who I was as a man was I'm making my own fucking decision. And I say this to guys, it doesn't matter where you're at in your life. It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself. All that matters is you fucking own it. Own where you're at. Be okay with exactly where you're at. You're unemployed. You live in your mother's basement. It doesn't matter. Own where you're at and understand that you will move forward and you'll do what you can to better yourself. But as long as you make your own decisions and stop looking external to yourself to try and find answers and just be purposeful in your decisions, that's all women want from you, because that will make them safe. That makes them trust you. Because when you're trying to any capacity in anything in life, all it says is that you don't feel like you're enough for it. So when you're not trying, you expect it to happen.
Yeah, wow. And I love that you mentioned that
it's a normal thing to happen.
Yeah, the decisions are so critical. I was talking to one of my clients this morning, and it's just like, dude, no, all a girl wants is a guy to lead, right? And in order for you to lead properly, you have to make decisions. And you have to be okay with not having all the information, not having all the resources, not having all the money, all the time or whatever, but you still have to make a decision. And as long as you lead, she doesn't give a shit. She actually, and guys, I want you to understand this if you're listening to this or watching this, is that she doesn't give a shit if you lead her down the wrong way, as long as you lead and then you own up to the mistake afterwards. And like, oh, actually, this way. And that's what I love what you said, man. You made a decision, and man, you're pretty lucky in that situation, man, where you just like so clueless, like, why do you want to take me home? I don't understand, right? And what if I'm not good? It's like, oh, who cares? You know? But
that was the rawness behind it. That was such a huge moment for me. I mean, I said there's lots of different moments, but that moment in particular just blew my mind open to everything I've been doing has been the complete opposite of where I need to be. And what I will say to what you just said also is that there's a lot of guys who just, how do I lead? They're trying to learn how to lead women. You cannot lead a woman until you can lead yourself. You have to be leading your own life. Otherwise, you don't have the reservoirs for her, because she will tip you the fuck over the first opportunity she gets, because women are strong.
And so talk us through this, man. Just one last question before we start wrapping up. It's like, what do you mean by she will tip you over? Like, give us through an example, right? Because most guys I talk to don't really understand what this actually means.
Okay, well, a woman changing your perception or your opinion of anything that you believe in, or changing your decision on anything that you believe in at your core, is necessarily, it's her tipping you over. It's her moving you out of your purpose and out of your path, because you need her validation. You need her to be with you. You need her for happiness. And when you're moving through your life like that, you're not going to connect with the type of women that you want to. Women won't want to stay with you. And it's really unfortunate, because it's simplistic in its essence. You just got to make your own decisions, and you got to know where you want to go. We're on a train, and the way I see it is that I'm constantly moving on my train. And every so often my train will stop and a girl will hop on.
Yes.
But I keep going on that train, and the door's always open, and I always let her know if at any moment you're not happy being in the direction I'm going, the door's always open. You can always leave, because I only want you to be with me if you want to be here. But I don't go off my vision or my passion or my purpose, which then brings you back to the other question: what are you passionate about? Because many guys don't even know. It's such a holistic thing. There's so many things that men need to start questioning and asking better questions, rather than tiny, minute little questions that give tiny, minute little answers. Look at the bigger picture, and women will just start to come into your life when you're proactive. But tipping over, it's being reactive. It's trying to get a response. It's trying to get a reaction from a woman that will confirm to you that, oh, that means I'm funny, or oh, that means I'm attractive, oh, that means I'm good enough. It's like, no, you're all of those things already. Her response and reaction does not mean anything unless you decide it does.
Yeah.
It's your edge and your firmness which will allow her to be beside you.
I love that, man. That's so critical for guys to understand. Like, you know, like me and you, we've probably seen it before. We've probably done it before. I know I have. Is where, you know, you're just your own self, your own guy when you're by yourself. But then when you meet a girl and you fall mad head over heels for her, you just change, right? It's like changing that course of the train to go somewhere else just because, oh, hey, you want to go to Barcelona too? Yeah, that's where I was going to go. But you actually headed to like Madrid or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I still have to catch myself in that. It never stops. It never ends. There's this awareness that you need to have about where you're at. You always have to have it. And I still find myself like really getting into women who are incredibly feminine to me and just bring so much to who I am. I'm like, no, Chris, step back a bit, breathe, sit back into yourself, because that's not what she needs from you right now. And in essence, you're staying in alignment with yourself. You're not trying to change yourself for somebody else.
And talk us through this, man. One last question, because I just love this conversation, man. Is like, you know, you're saying, you know, you need to know where you want to go, yeah. And then, you know, sometimes a woman will say something, test you, to test your beliefs, test how strong you want to stand up for them. How do you know if you're being too arrogant and just ignoring the real good advice? Right? How do you know for yourself, Chris? I'm interested.
Arrogance doesn't exist to me unless you're afraid. Because arrogance to me is that you're trying incredibly hard to be in a role that you feel you need to be to get people to like you. I hope I've like verbalized that correctly, because there's a lot going on in my head when I try to say that. But to me, people say there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance, but I think they're completely opposite. Confidence is coming from you being courageous, you being vulnerable, you being open, you being honest about your fears and who you are and what you want and what you don't want, and still showing up even though you're scared shitless. That's courage. That breeds confidence, and that breeds self-reliance. And I feel that a man can only have true confidence if he's self-reliant in himself. Where arrogance comes from is a guy chasing trends. It's a guy running after what he thinks will make him happy. And it's a guy not feeling worthy enough, so he's taking on the mechanism of, you know, beating his chest and shouting loudly. Like all these pickup artists and these alpha guys who are super alpha, and you see them up in the club walking around and just trying so hard to the detriment of their own happiness. And all you got to do is hold eye contact with one of these guys and they just start to crumble. Give them any presence and they just start to crumble. And I don't mean that in like a bullying negative way. But I had someone who done that for me, and I needed that. I was very grateful for that. So when I meet people, especially men who are like that, I'll put all my presence on them and allow them to sit with it and see what happens to them. Because I feel that the more you just keep getting someone shit and dumping it on them, the more they will have to deal with it eventually. And I want everyone to be their best self. I don't want that guy to be trying so hard. I want him to understand how easy this is if he just starts to listen to himself. So yeah, everything I'm doing is coming from love and appreciation, and I want men to have freedom, because we need it at this moment in time in society. There's a lot of confusion.
And I love it, man. I love your, you know, definitions of arrogance and the difference of that with confidence. And I love that you went through that. I really appreciate that. And I love exactly what you say is that, you know, that men, there's this like I think this is Tony Robbins said this to me, right? When I was at one of his events, he said, you know, as long as a man has a beating heart, then all he wants is freedom, right? All he wants is freedom, and all that's all we really want. And I so understand what you're taking yourself and where you want to bring your vision, man, because men just want freedom, right? And we have to live that freedom, because otherwise we're just a caged animal, right? And if we're a caged animal, we cannot be and have what it is that we're meant to be and do. And so I love what you're doing, man. And Chris, man, we got to start wrapping up the show, man. But before that, we're going to head into the quick fire questions round. Is that cool with you, man?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. So we're going to start with our signature question here. Chris, you know, if you could travel back in time, yeah, and any moment in your life, you could go back and talk to little Chris and give him one piece of advice, one piece of wisdom, when would you go back to and what would you tell him?
That's a good question. When would I go back? I'd go back to when I was about 16, 17, and I'd grab the little fucker and I'd shake him a bit and I'd slap him a bit and I'd say, you don't have to try so hard. You're already valuable. You're already worthy. You already deserve everything you want. Stop trying for anything. Just be.
Yeah. Love it, man. Awesome.
You wouldn't know that. He'd still smoke weed and forget about it.
Yeah. Stop trying to smoke so much. Right?
Yeah. What are you trying to prove, man?
Oh, love it, man. Next question I have for you, Chris, is like, I'm sure you've read a lot of books, man. And I'm sure there's some great classics you have, right? And if there was just one book that was a total must read for everyone here listening and watching, what would that book be?
So the answer to your first question, I haven't read a lot of books, surprisingly enough. I don't like to put information into my head. I just like to experience, because that's a whole other topic that I could go into for an hour, at the hypocrisy of all that. But I have read some things, but As a Man Thinketh by, I think it's James Allen. It's short, it's concise, and it's every man needs to read that book. As a Man Thinketh. All
right, we'll add that into the show notes, man. Awesome. Next question I have for you, and I'm pumped to have you on here, because as the founder of Masculine Intent, this is really something I'm waiting for, is that, man, this, men in today's world are not where we should be, right? If we can imagine the modern world has, gone up here, women are up here because feminism, they've driven it over the last 30 years, but I feel men have been left behind, But if that's the case, and if that's true, what do you think, Chris, what do you think men need to do in order to bridge this gap? What does the world need from men today to actually get closer to where we need to be?
Leading by example. Individually leading by example. I don't think a group effort is never necessary, and it's almost unfathomable at this moment in time. Every man needs to lead by example, and the guys who come to me, I always tell them, are you an ambassador for men or are you not? Because you need to be stepping up in ways that the others aren't, because when we raise the bar, there's no other option, because everyone below has to step up to that. The higher the bar goes, the more people have to own up, and the more greatness you're around, the greater you'll be. So that will work as a support mechanism. That's a huge question. And just to answer very basically, it's every single man needs to take responsibility for their own situation, not complain about it, and actually be proactive about it and start leaning into tension in their own life. And that will get the results that man is looking for. And then as that man, go and share it with others. Help set your brothers free.
Love it, man. Beautiful, beautiful, man. I knew you'd prepare a great answer for that, man. And the preparation was just being there. I know, it just flew through you, man. That's what flow is. That's the magic of it. Just two more questions here, brother. Right. So, we talked about purpose. We talked about how a man needs to know his passion, get on his purpose. What do you, in your eyes, Chris, what is true purpose? Well, when do you know someone's on their true purpose?
This is a great question, because I think the idea of purpose is very misconstrued in life, because there's so much pressure on find your purpose, know your ideal purpose, and find your purpose in 15 minutes. I saw that in some YouTube video a few weeks ago. I was like, oh my God. For me, purpose is doing what makes you feel good as it's making you feel good. And as soon as that something is not making you feel good, go and find something that makes you feel good. For me, I'm not going to sit here and arrogantly or presumptuously say that I'm on my life's purpose. My life purpose could be anything, but I know that I do what I want to do, and I base what I want to do on what makes me feel good, what brings joy, what makes me get out of bed and say, I want to get out of bed and I want to start doing what I do. That's purpose to me. It means I have a direction. So I think it's better for guys if they don't have it so monumental, because it's scary as fuck, and bring it right back down to what do you like doing and how can that serve other people, and then start going into that. And to find that, the quickest way to find your purpose or what makes you feel good is to start getting rid of everything in your life that makes you feel bad. Anything that's not serving you or others, get rid of it, because everyone builds their life for comfort. And we do things that, oh, I have to do it because other people expect me to do it, or my parents expect me to do it, and it's you're just being dragged further away from your own passion and your goals and your ambition and your edge and your masculinity.
Dude, man, you just keep like layering up the awesomeness here, man. I'm pumped, man.
Yes, I've been doing this for so long that I just have to throw it at everybody who listen.
Yeah.
Who listens, they're.
And one final question here, Chris, man. As we wrap up here, like, you know, if you had 30 seconds left to live, man, and you're surrounded by the people that matter to you most, your family, your friends, the people you've made an impact on, what would you say to them?
What was I saying to them? Thank you. Because very selfishly, they've made my life better because I've been able to serve them. And that's where my happiness, that's where all our happiness comes from. You just got to realize that. So what you're doing for others, you're kind of doing for yourself. And once you understand that, you can have that feel-good loop just happen forever. So yeah, I'd say thank you because they made me happier than I could have been.
Dude, love that, man. Amazing shit. So Chris, man, as I thought it would be, man, it's amazing to have you on the show, man. You know, for the people who want to learn more about yourself and your work, where's the best place they can go?
You can check out my website. It's masculineintent.com. That's basically it. It's got everything that I do and that I share on there, like podcast videos, articles, lots of free, endlessly amounts of free stuff. So yeah, check that out.
Awesome, man.
Listen, thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate you reaching out, contacting me, and giving me the opportunity to come on and reach more people and to share some, you know, I keep using this word, but to share some honesty and realness with people that it's possible for everyone to get to where they want to get to.
No, man. Thank you for that, man. I really appreciate that. And one final thing here, Chris, man, is there anything else you wanted to add on that we didn't get a chance to cover on the show today?
I don't think so. I mean, my value comes from the questions people ask me, so I'm not going to talk here at anybody. No, you asked awesome questions, and I feel that what I've shared has really been valuable, and how you contributed has really been valuable to people listening. So I think it's best just to leave it there. And if people have any more questions or want to ask anything, you know, either contact me via you or, you know, via my website. But no, I'm happy.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. And we'll add your website and the contact details in the show notes as well. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast today with the Masculine Intent founder, Chris Bale here today. And I want to make sure that this message goes out there because I know this. Chris doesn't want this to be a secret. I don't want this to be a secret. We need to get it out there. So make sure you head on over to iTunes to rate the show and share this out there because, you know, it's not just Chris's message we're bringing out to the world. We're bringing all the other guests on this as well. And of course, you can go to richardfu.com for all the show notes and all the resources Chris has shared as well. And finally, guys, go out there, go live with love and go smash it. And I'll see you again in the next one.